Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And I decided to cover a book to celebrate the occasion of the month of love. And what more romantic book, let me just say, than Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I'm just fucking around, of course. I understand that Lolita is not a love story. I mean, Vanity Fair says here, the only convincing love story of our century. They're lying. It's not. It's a really messed up story of a really disturbed individual. I don't condone any of that, but I really love this novel, so what do you want me to say? It's a brilliant piece of literature. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and like I said, I decided to celebrate the Valentine's Day occasion with Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, one of my favorite novels of all time, and also a novel that had a deep formative influence on me. Let me back up there. I read this book, I probably shouldn't have. I read this when I was in late middle school, early high school. I was kind of in that period where I was reading a bunch of classics, and I read this one, and it left a really, really deep impact on me that has remained with me to this very day. And to be honest, I didn't actually own this book until quite recently. And also, it really inspired me to, and after reading My Dark Vanessa, it inspired me to cover this book for Valentine's Day. So, let's get into it, why don't we? Lolita is not only one of my favorite novels, as I mentioned before, but it is one of the great novels of the English language, which is even more impressive considering that Vladimir Nabokov was not a native English speaker. He was from Russia. He spoke English, Russian, and French, all three fluently throughout his life, and he wrote well in all three. His command of the English language is... oh, so good. I won't go too deep into it, though. Not yet. We're not there yet. Lolita is one of those books that, if you didn't gather what I said before, it had such a huge impact on me that I don't think I could justify its impact on me with mere words. I mean, one of my favorite takes on this book is actually comes from the film Captain Fantastic, which is a great film, by the way. You guys should go check it out. It's great. Viggo Mortensen's in it. The kid from It is in it before he kind of got older and became the bully character. Also the guy from 1917's in it. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Great film. Check it out. And there's a scene in the film which is one of my favorites, where one of the daughters, the older daughters, explains why this book in particular is so powerful, moving, and disturbing all at the same time.
Because it's written from his perspective. You sort of understand and sympathize with him, which is kind of amazing because he's essentially a child molester. But his love for her is beautiful. But it's also sort of a trick because it's so wrong. You know, he's old and he basically rapes her. So it makes me feel... I hate him. And somehow I feel sorry for him at the same time.
Okay, fine. You want me to not use a film as a crutch. What do I appreciate about Lolita? Well, allow me to elucidate you. It's not easy to sympathize with a pedo. As a matter of fact, most of us would want to see someone like Humbert get punished in the most cruel, scathing ways imaginable. Yet somehow, Nabokov manages to get you to become both enamored and disgusted with this man, as well as being disgusted with this man. His perverse love for Lolita feels so real, and it's expressed in words that are so carefully crafted that it's one of those books where I just had to sit it down. I was in complete awe and wonder over what I had just read. And then, I had to collect myself and then go back to it. I mean, let me just read the first chapter here, the first lines from the first chapter here, to give you an idea of what we're playing with here. Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul, Lolita. The tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. Lolita. She was low, plain low, in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school. She was Dolores on the dotted line. But in my arms, she was always Lolita. That is just the first chapter, people. And there are passages just like that where Humbert, yes, but Nabokov plays with language, the wordplay, the allusions. I mean, it is one of the most sophisticated and carefully crafted novels of the English language. But at the same time, you have to contend with the fact that this is basically a romanticized retelling of a sick, vile person basically acting out on his disgusting urges on an innocent child, basically. And it's this constant contradiction throughout the novel that keeps it as engaging as it is, which keeps it as powerful as it is. And that's why I think it's struck as much of a chord as it has over the years. Humbert is a character who is ripe with complexities and contradictions, even though his motives might be straightforward at first. He is eloquent and sophisticated, but he's also this vile, sick man. Sexy, while also repulsive. Much like Alex from A Clockwork Orange or the Judge from Blood Meridian, Humbert's sophistication turns off our suspicion of him and hides the monster within. This is made even more complicated because we actually see the story from Humbert's perspective. It's his eloquence that warps our perspective of him as the story moves along. On the one hand, we feel sorry for him because of just how lost he is in his life, to the point where all he has are his nymphets, as he so calls them. Yet there is no denying that Humbert is a monster. Much of Lolita's power comes from Humbert and Nabokov seducing you and manipulating you with the linguistic prowess at play here, as well as the humanity that deep down all of us share. There's the humanity that deep down Humbert has. And it's really uncomfortable not only understanding this person, but even feeling sorry for him. And I think it's this discomfort which makes people which repels people, but also really fascinates the people who do end up appreciating this novel, like I do. Nabokov never shares any answers or allows the characters to reflect his opinions. Well, maybe except for the fictional foreword at the beginning of the story, maybe. But he merely allows the characters to illustrate the thesis of this novel. Yet, then, there is also the girl, Dolores. Poor Dolores. She never really had a chance, did she? While she is romanticized and fetishized by Humbert, she is the ultimate refutation that this story is a love story in any way imaginable. I mean, again, I have to refute what Vanity Fair says here about the only convincing love story of our century, when it's not. This story is a tragedy. Dolores is a character who has been severely damaged by the world around her, as well as the people who were supposed to protect her. Even when she finds an out from Humbert's grasp, she finds herself further manipulated and unhappy, using sex as a way to cope with her miserable life. It's Shakespearean. The tragedy of this book is how Humbert robs Dolores of ever living a normal life. And not only does he refuse to see it, or, well, yeah, that's probably the best way to say it, he refuses to see it, but he deludes himself and the audience to thinking that somehow he is also a victim in all this. I mean, you hate Humbert for his manipulation and his using of this young girl for his sick, disgusting urges. Yet, you can't help but feel some pity towards him alongside your disgust because of just how pathetic and empty he is on the inside and how desperate he is to find some sort of purpose in his life, even if that purpose is absolutely disgusting. It is this duality where I find the genius of Lolita truly lies, because it is that constant back and forth of if you should feel pity for him, or if you should just see him as a monster, or maybe a bit of both. I mean, there is still humanity even in the most vile monsters. I mean, Stalin loved his daughter, but at the same time, that doesn't mean he wasn't any less of a monster. again, I really could go on about the storytelling, the prose, the just all the stuff that he does. I mean, John Updike puts it really well in this back blurb. Nabokov writes prose in the only way it should be written. That is ecstatically. And that is the best way I could describe the prose of Lolita, is ecstatic. Now, I won't pretend that it will seduce everyone as it may have seduced people like me, but man, just the wordplay and the linguistic and the wit that Nabokov has is incredibly done. And I don't think we'll see anything else like him. Nabokov's voice is a singular one, such as William Blake or Cormac McCarthy or Alan Moore for that instance. Nabokov is in a league entirely of his own. And again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself because, in all honesty, I don't think I could justify just the sheer emotional mind fuck that you'll go through when reading this book. But keep in mind, this book is not for the easily offended. I mean, this book is literally about a pederast, we'll say. Well, wait, that means he's in the boys. A pedophile, who is really getting his rocks off and trying to romanticize it, and it's disgusting, and it feels disgusting. It's beautiful, but at the same time, it's disgusting. Beautifully disgusting, as I've said to friends before. Like all great novels, Lolita challenges the reader, and it is not easily placed into one category. On the one hand, it is a darkly compelling character study of a disturbed, sick individual. But on the other, it's a love letter to language and the written word, and also a study of how powerful the written word is in swaying people's opinions and their feelings, because, humans are not always rational creatures. It takes our desire to understand, and he goes, all right, you want to understand? Here it is. And he really forces you to understand this man's perspective, even almost tricking you into feeling sorry for you, bluntly challenging your own views and judgments about the world around you. And that is where I think Nabokov's true genius shines. Lolita personally disturbs me because it shows you without flinching that even the most vile monsters among us are just people, just like us. In other words, it's a great novel, and it stands completely on its own. I actually got some interesting comments because I wanted to hear some, because, I feel like I couldn't fully justify my love of Lolita just on my own. So I got some interesting comments from my beloved audience, so I'm going to read some off. I got one from the Limitless Librarian, but she was just mentioning I got to read Lolita at some time, which you should. It's a fantastic read if this review didn't already get to you. If this review didn't convince you to go read it, hopefully you'll find someone who will convince you. So, yeah, let's go through the comments real quick. I got two that I really want to cover. Well, two that was put on there. Jack the Reader says, it was discussed recently in a book called On Monsters, in which the author praised Nabokov for being brave enough to tell the worst story, in air quotes, for a selfless reason, to show how pedophilia annihilates children. Beautifully put there, Jack. I mean, I really have nothing else to add to that. I think that's a really well done. I think that's a really, I really got nothing left to add. That's a great way to put it. And, of course, my good friend of the channel, very beloved amongst the Some Hokey Dude crowd, Jason Furman. He says, what's special about the book is that he took the risk of telling a story like that through the lens of someone who he tried to make believable rather than for pure shock value. Agreed. Most stories that tackle controversial subject matter go about it in the wrong way. They try to point the finger at the behavior rather than exploring it from curiosity. I thought this was really interesting that you said that, Jason, because, if you really think about it, I feel like Nabokov is actually deconstructing that desire. He's basically going, okay, do you really want to know? Do you really want to understand what these people are like? Okay, I'll show you. And it really messes with your perception, which I think, again, is really the genius of Lolita, is how Nabokov messes with your perception, your perspective, the way you view the world. But that was a great comment, Jason. I think that's a really well done comment. But I would go a step further. I'd say he's deconstructing our desire to understand as much as he is showing us to understand what these people are like. And I also agree. I do respect the balls that Nabokov had when writing this. There's not really much else for me to say. I mean, I could talk about the cultural impact, but in all honesty, there have been people who have covered the cultural impact of Lolita in far more eloquent ways than I ever could. I mean, I'll link some videos down below if you want to watch that, if you're interested in watching stuff about the cultural impact of Lolita. But Lolita is one of my favorite novels, and it's one that I go back to every few years, and I read again, and the magic just comes back, and just the full... It's like a great meal that you get at a fancy restaurant, or it's like you sit down, you pour some wine, you put on some great classical music or jazz music or whatever you like listening to, you sit down and you just relax and you're just enjoying yourself. That's what Lolita is like, except, you know, there's a lot of mental engagement that you have to put into this book. This is not for the faint of heart, and also it is not for the easily offended either. I didn't even bring up how funny this was. This book is freaking hilarious at points. I mean, it's a satire of American pop culture from an outsider's perspective. And also, there's just a lot of crossing the line twice humor in this book that is just absolutely crazy. I mean, there's one where... You know what? I'm not even going to say it. It's really messed up. But yeah, no. Lolita is a brilliant novel. It is a brilliant story. And you guys should go check out Lolita as soon as possible. It is one of my favorite books of all time. It's a book that's changed my life, and a book that might change yours if you give it a chance. Yeah, so Lolita. And that is all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to check me out on social media, I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. Also, I am on... Discord. If you want to come talk to me, about books, comics, shows, movies, anything you want, I'll be there. You can come hit me up. If you want to ask me about Lolita and why I appreciate it so much that wasn't this video review, feel free. Thank you for the comments, ladies and gentlemen who commented on the what makes Lolita so special. I was asking for your perspective. Man, I gotta do that more often. That was really good. But yeah, Lolita, fantastic book. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. See you guys later. Bye-bye.